I'm David Weeks, President and Director of Academic Affairs at the National High School Debate League of China. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about evidence and how to use evidence both in real life and in your debate cases. So what is evidence? Well, evidence is something that we use from somewhere else to prove that something that we said is true or is valid. In other words, it helps us give a reason or a warrant for one of our claims. So when would we use evidence and why? Well, first, we would definitely use evidence in debate. Evidence is really useful in debate cases. Evidence is also really useful in rebuttals, in disproving your opponent's cases. Moreover, evidence can be really useful for background research. So evidence is really important in debate in three ways. But also, evidence is really important in real life. Not only in college, but at your job as well. When you're in college, you'll be asked to write essays. In your literature classes, in your social science and history classes, you'll be asked to write essays that make arguments, and you'll have to use evidence to prove what you're saying is true. You'll have to prove at your job that what you're saying is actually true and is some way consistent with the company's profits or the company's interests. So just as evidence is important in debate, it's also really important in real life. It's important in college, and it's definitely important when you have a job. So we're going to focus today on debate evidence, and what it is and where we can find it. So there are a couple of steps to finding good evidence. The first is we have to figure out what it is that we're proving. So remember that each debate argument has a claim, a warrant, and an impact. Evidence can be really useful in helping us to further develop and back up our warrants. So in order to actually use evidence, in order to find good evidence, we have to figure out what's the nature of the claim we're making. A warrant is only useful if it proves a claim true. So we have to figure out what is the nature of the claim. What kind of claim are we trying to prove? The second thing we need to do is find the evidence. The third thing we need to do is actually use it. That means put it in our debate cases or put it in a rebuttal speech, figure out a way to actually deploy it in a debate round. So step one, identify the nature of the claim. Step two, find the actual evidence. Step three, use it in the debate round. So let's focus on step one. Now there are two kinds of claims that we can use evidence to back up. The first is real world or scientific. Scientific claims need scientific warrants. That is, if you're making a real world claim, you need to have a real world fact or a scientific study to back that up. So if you're looking for scientific studies, you're probably going to be looking at evidence that has numbers in it. You're probably going to need statistics. You're going to need actual data. So when you look for scientific studies, you want to be thinking about research institutions. You want to look at university research institutes and think tanks. You might also consider looking at non-government organizations, for instance, the United Nations. Oftentimes, the United Nations or the International Monetary Fund will commission specific studies that might be useful on particular debate topics. The second kind of claim is analytical. An analytical claim is not making a claim about the real world. That is, it's not a claim that requires numbers. In fact, usually analytical claims are claims based in philosophy, based in theory, not so much in practice. So evidence that proves analytical claims is probably going to be qualitative, not quantitative. That is, it's going to give us some descriptions about the world, or some logical analysis, rather than scientific studies and numbers. So now, after we figure out what kind of claim we're actually trying to prove, we can start finding the actual evidence that we need. So step 2 is find the evidence. So where do we find evidence? Well, a good place to start would be looking basic online searches. So basic online searches would include things like search engines, so if you're searching in Chinese, Baidu is good. If you're searching in English, Google is probably the best online search engine. You can also look at a couple of alternatives such as Bing or Dogpile, which can also return a lot of good results for you. I find that that's very useful for background research. There's also another kind of online research that you can do,